Welcome to our weekly Tao discussion. We're so grateful to be here with you. Today, we are exploring chapter 4 of the Tao Te Ching, which talks about, from my interpretation anyway, talks about utilizing the Tao as an adaptogen for our life's challenges. So I'm looking forward to getting into this with you and exploring. Let's go. Tao, the way, can be infused into the nature and put to use without being exhausted. It is so deep and subtle, like an abyss. That is the origin of all things. It is complete and perfect as a wholeness that can round off sharp edges, resolve confusion, harmonize with the glory, act in unity with the lowliness. The Tao is so profound and yet invisible. It exists in everywhere and anywhere. I don't know whose child it is. It existed before heaven and earth. The Tao sounds like some good stuff.
It's kind of the stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I wonder if we can put it in a pill and swallow it.
The Tao is in the pill.
Seems like it's in everything.
It's from the highest to the lowest.
So, what do you think this first line means? The Tao can be infused into the nature and put to use without being exhausted.
Infused into the nature.
Yeah, that's what this interpretation says.
I'm just going to immediately look at another one just to get a little...
By the way, if this is your first time tuning in or you don't know, there are many hundreds of translations of the Tao Te Ching. So depending on which one you're looking at.
This one, the first line is very different. The Tao is like a bowl that can never be emptied.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you make of that? It's like a bowl that can never be empty.
Well, for me, I need, or I value science in my spiritual explorations, and I want to just say it's a discovery. There's something we've become aware of in the last 50 years or so of what's called the 0 point field, and in subatomic physics, there is an understanding that if you take a space and remove everything from it, every atom, everything down to the everything, complete and utter total vacuum, there is still a detectable wave. There's a field. There is a field of being, of energy that exists, that cannot be taken away. It can't be removed. And not only that, but it is mathematically, they've shown that this 0 point field within, like, I want to say like a 3-inch by 3-inch space. It may be even smaller, but within a very small amount of space, there's enough energy to boil oceans, right? So the 0 point field has enough, it's infinite energy, and it is a frequency that precedes anything and that we have no impact on. We cannot remove it. We can only observe it. And a field, I've only recently come to understand this, that a field is measured by how it affects its environment. That's the only way, like we measure electricity by voltage and ampage, etc. But fields are only measured in how they affect their environment. And so when I think about this Tao, this inexhaustible Tao, in a modern way, that is what comes to my mind.
that the implications
Oh, yeah.
of really,
Infinite energy.
really embodying that,
Mm-hmm.
just like what you said about that very small space having the the energy to boil oceans
Mm-hmm.
is how does one even fathom that? As we're talking about this, please, as you're listening, put your own thoughts in the chat as we're exploring, because it's so much richer when we have different perspectives
Yes.
involved in this conversation. What comes to me is thinking of a mother's womb and how it goes from an empty space to just having that needed seed to cultivate a human, or similarly planting this teeny tiny seed in the earth in this seemingly, I mean, empty space, and from it just like a huge magnificent plant can come forth seemingly out of nothing. So the application of all that
Yeah.
in our daily lives, besides trying to understand how in the world we have manifested here as humans, like how do we utilize this teaching here in our daily lives? Like the Tao is so profound and yet it's invisible. It exists in everywhere and anywhere. So how do we tap into this never emptying bowl of infinite energy? Do we just reach out and grab it?
Well, you said it earlier, talking about trees and, you know, human reproduction. For me, this chapter, so much of what this chapter is speaking to is just simply wonder, awe and wonder at the mystery. You know, like we have no idea how we got here, and we will never actually figure it all out.
Yeah, and that's kind of the hilarity of you trying to explain high school biology is that it is important that we look at the different sides and we ask ourselves how is this even possible, and then we try and form these fascinating hypotheses and conclusions. The tricky part is mistaking our hypotheses for concrete forever fact and forgetting the mystery. So yeah, for me as well, that's really the magic of this chapter is remember that age-old question that our 4-year-old asked me the other day in the car. Where did God come from? Great question, honey. I don't know. I don't know.
You know what I'm getting here? This has been a source of just amazement and wonder for me ever since. I mean, you know, as a child in the country, you know, growing up out in the running through the woods and stuff, collecting rocks, and you would find seashells in the rocks on a hill or a mountain, right? It's like, oh my gosh, this used to be underwater. And then when, you know, we were living in Jamaica, there were times where I would be holding a handful of sand and would realize, like looking at those little minuscule pieces of sand and seeing that it's made up of seashells and made up of like volcanic rock and made up of all different kinds, like made up of mountains. I'm holding the sand that is made of mountains. And one day, this sand, some part of it, may again become a mountain that will again become the sand. You know, and that's what a lot of this verse, the rounds the sharp edges. You know, how does the Tao round the sharp edges? The same way that water cuts the canyon. This one here says it resolves the tangled. I love that. So like if you have a tangled ball, if you think about that, you got a tangled mess of twine or whatever that's sitting on the table. How does the Tao resolve that?
So that's the practical piece for me. I'm generally trying to bring it back to the practical, pragmatic parts. Like, okay, but like, how is this actually helpful? Yes, there is the mystery, and that in and of itself maybe is the pragmatic application. Is when I, like, I'm thinking, when I find myself in a state of confusion, this translation says it resolves confusion, or when I'm feeling in a state of lowliness and there just seems to be no end in sight, the adaptogenic application here, adaptogenic meaning the medicine gives you what you need. Just in the recognition of the great mystery, that there is this inexhaustible source, that the exact dilemma that I'm faced with has been created by this inexhaustible source of all. It almost seems to take me through a portal of resolving the dilemma, because then all of the sudden it seems like, oh, this isn't a dilemma at all. They're actually, the meaning I was making has just been turned on its head by realizing there's no problem, of which I thought there was.
Yeah. It's the same. Just that the shout out David Guillaume podcast that we just listened to this week. You know, there is no problem if you give it to God. If you just give it to the Tao, let go of it, like, it's going to resolve itself. Again, that doesn't mean that we don't take action, but our worried, uninspired, fragmented, frantic action is just tangling it. I've always loved, this is interesting for me anyway, I'm relating it to this text because it is actually applicable. I love untying knots. I've always loved, as a kid, I loved untying knots. When our kids bring a knot to me, I'm like, oh, I can. And the way that you untangle a knot, yeah, you've got to like look for the end and there's things, but you like, the more gentle you are with it, like kind of, sometimes you just bounce it around and it starts to soften and loosen up, you know, and then you can like, all right, now let's weave it this way and that way. And so there's this balance of doing and not doing that is part of untangling a knot. So like there are very practical ways that we can take the teachings of this book and apply them to the most basic of functions to even the most complicated. Look at, there's another somewhere here, it says like running a country, I think, is like frying small fish, right? Or running a company is like frying small fish. The more you mess with it, right, the more you just create problems. So like, it's like, right, flip, just like it's that same thing. Like the great butcher cuts without cutting.
Yeah. Yeah. It also speaks to the principle that we practice in our community, welcome everything, to me.
Yeah.
So we have different agreements in our community that we practice in ceremony, in integration circles, in our private community spaces and clubs and everywhere. And one of them is welcome everything, which is speaking to this, basically. Whatever is arising for us. And when we recognize that, then we can then actually look at it instead of resist it and push it away. So we have a whole 4-week course in our membership that is really important, that we are all in agreement and in consent in our community about the principles that we practice when we come together in communion with something greater than ourselves. So we'll link that in the show notes if you're interested in joining our community and going through that course to see if our community is even a fit for you. And then also we'll link our Sunday service access every week, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific time. We get on Zoom as a community. We generally have between 50 and 100 people on Sunday service via Zoom. And we'd love for you to be one of them, join the conversation. It's a free space for non-members and members alike to come together and explore the Tao. So we'd love to have you there. We'll link it in the show notes. Is there anything else that
Can
you wanna
I share a Jamaican
share?
proverb with you?
Whoa, yeah.
And see if you can relate it to the Tao.
This sounds like a challenge.
It is. I mean,
Sure.
I think it'll.
I accept.
I'm gonna say it in like its original form, not with a Jamaican accent, but
Oh,
the
darn.
word. No, I won't do that. I don't want to get.
Okay, yeah,
canceled.
just do it.
So it is, the more liturgical real, the more emptied.
Well,
You know,
of
probably.
course, if yeah, it reminds me of that Jamaican children's book we have.
Oh yeah. Ptolemy
Ptolemy
turtle.
soon come.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if you're caught up in a net and you just scramble like a little turtle caught up in a net,
Twisted up in there.
then you're just gonna get yourself in a big old mess. So chill and enjoy the ride.
I guess the last thing I would love to hear you speak to, the line in this one says, "Truly it is unfathomable, and yet we know it is there."
That, to me, what comes up for me is that sixth sense, so to speak, that intuition, that connection that we feel but can't explain with our words. It's only experienced with ourselves. Much like our communion experience with the mushroom is just indescribable. And yet it is like the dream world. It's like this mysterious something that we experience, but how to put words to it, it's fun to try. It's a nice adventure to try and explain, but it's just the more we try and explain it sometimes, the farther away we get from the original experience.
So that would be my invitation to folks listening who are open to it, is to find a way to enter into the mystery sometime this week, some way, multiple ways, multiple times, to sit with. Really, you can find it anywhere. You can sit with anything, even in just quiet, closed eyes. But, Courtney mentioned the tree. Looking at a tree and considering how it absorbs light from the sun and CO2 and nutrients, and goes from being this little bitty seed to a massive, massive tree. The anciency of that species of tree, or holding a rock and just considering the infinite wonder that can be found in just being with nature, being with other humans, even being in a very, quote, unnatural environment. You can sit in traffic and get a bird's eye view and consider all of the lives that have gone into creating that moment. And that somehow that moment that you're sitting in that might seem like a hell no is actually a very important, essential piece of whatever is to come. So the Tao is so practical. And the mystery, and acknowledging, being mindful of that mystery is so important to adding, I want to say meaning, but it's more than that. It's that depth of experience to our lives. What is the meaning of life? Maybe it's just to experience it at whatever depth our awareness will allow. So that's my invitation to you, to explore the mystery in whatever way suits your fancy over the next week.
Thank you so much for being with us over this interesting exploration. I sure enjoyed it. So hopefully you did too. And we hope to see you next week as we explore chapter 5.